So this is a series to improve the rotation capacity of the knee. The knee has a small degree of rotation. If it doesn't, it's very difficult to transfer force through your foot, from your foot up through your knee and into your hip and going downwards through the chain too. So there's a couple ways we're going to do this first. What we want is, we don't want the knee to move at this stage. So quite often people try to do this, their knee starts doing this. That's how the body trying to work out how to do it. That's movement coming from the hip. We don't want that. The knee stays still, so you can have your hands on here so that it doesn't move. Lift your foot, and then you're making your foot pivot on the heel, kind of like you're screwing out a cigarette with your heel and not with the ball of your foot. And what I'm moving here, so if I take my hands away, it's movement actually coming from the tibia and the fibula as well. So they're the big shin bone mainly. So if you look at your knee, there's a bit of a pointy bit down from the kneecap, about 3 fingers width below the kneecap. It's a bit of a pointy bit. That's the tibial tuberosity. That part there moves, so I feel it move across, then it comes back in again. So I want you to just get used to that motion first. Do 10 to 20 of these, and do it as something you do often. This often is very difficult for people to feel and get used to, but it's really important in martial arts training and really good having a good solid base of grounded movement. So what I can feel here, if I put my hands underneath on the back of my leg on my hamstring, so there's 2 tendons on the hamstrings, so there's one on the outside, one on the inside. So you can just pull your heel towards your, if I'm going underneath the chair here, and I feel the tendons pop out under my fingers here. So when I turn my foot outwards like this, because it's coming from the shin, I feel the hamstring on this side. It's like it pulls it around because that's what it's doing. Then I'll turn the other way. It doesn't get as much hamstring activation on the inside here, but really on the outside you feel that hamstring work quite a bit. So it's working the popliteus muscle, it's working some of the calf and the hamstrings to get this movement to happen. So play with that first. That's the main motion. What I'm also not doing is just this. That's the body also trying to work out how to do it. This is coming from my midfoot, from my foot itself. We want it to come from here, from the shin. So the whole shin bone is rotating. Next one, this is a form of CARS, controlled articular rotations. So I'm grabbing underneath, whatever you can comfortably do. The more you can pull it up, the better, but whatever's comfortable for your hip and your back. Grabbing on, give my leg a good bear hug. And I'm paying attention to this same point here. And I'm turning my foot out, extending up as far as I can, keeping the foot turned out. Then I turn the foot in, so the whole shin I turn in, it's not just my foot. Then I come down. And it's nice and slow. Then I keep my foot turned in again, try to turn it in even more, up as far as I can go, a bit of a hammy stretch, and I'm turning it all the way out. So I'm trying to get the movement from here, all the way up and back down again. And I'm repeating 10 reps of that, so I'm keeping it out, up as far as I can, turning the shin inwards, coming back down. What I'm not doing, the reason why I hug my leg, I don't want my femur to be doing this. So the femur stays really still, this bone is still, so the movement comes from here. What I'm also not doing is this. This is just coming from my foot. There's a little bit of turn here, but it's mainly coming from my foot. So we want the foot to be pulled up really tight. So the movement is coming from the shin, from here. So the foot's pulled up tight the whole time. So it can't be doing extra movement. And of course, definitely do both sides. Where we go from here, something called the listening foot. This comes from Joanne Elphinston, a movement specialist in the UK. So the internal and external rotation of the shin has an impact upon the flatness or the rise of the arch, or the pronation and supination of the foot. So you feel your foot first of all flat on the floor, so it's not lifted up or anything like that. So just foot relaxed and soft. You can put your hand on a table that's sort of firm and the hand's got a tight and tense, but you can let your hand be really soft and mold to the table. We want that kind of sensation in your foot, so it's soft and malleable. So I just start turning. So I'm pulling my shin around this way, and as it does that, it lifts my arch. It's just a synergistic motion that's normal in the human body. Then I make the shin turn in, and it makes my foot pronate a little bit, so the arch becomes a bit flatter. I'll show this from the side in a second. So I turn the shin outwards, the arch lifts, I turn it inwards, the arch drops. So it is a subtle motion, but it needs to be there. So what I don't want is that my knee does this again. The body's trying to figure out how to do it. We don't want the knee to move at all in terms of that motion. We want it to rotate. So I'm putting my hands underneath my tendons again. And as I rotate my shin outwards and the arch lifts, I feel the tendon under here work. It's like it's actually pulling it around. Then I pull it back around, more inwards, turning it outwards, turning it inwards. A visualization you can use is imagine a goldfish on its side underneath your foot. So as you turn your foot out and the arch lifts, you're taking some pressure off the goldfish. As you turn the shin in and the foot just naturally starts to flatten out, you're giving a bit of a squish. You're not squashing in, but giving a little bit of pressure. So I showed this from the side, and hopefully the shadow is not too dark. So I feel my foot flat on the ground, tendon's not propped up, I'm not pushing into the ground, nothing like that. I sense the ground under my foot. Then I'm turning the shin outwards. The arch will lift, I turn it inwards, and the arch drops. So my foot's doing a little bit of this motion here. And where this is really, really useful to get is actually restoring motion. Little kids have this motion. They're not necessarily have conscious control over, but when you watch them move, they have this motion. It's a natural spiral motion in the legs. We lose it as we get older, and if you have injuries in your ankle or your knee, people generally lose it. So it's actually restoring this motion. So if I pop my finger under here, as I turn the leg out, I feel the pressure come off my fingers, and as I turn the leg inwards in this way, it squashes my fingers a little bit. And it's nothing to do with me pushing my leg into the ground. High reps with this to get any kind of new restored motion. Aim for high reps. So we're doing at least sets of 20, and we're doing this regularly. Do it during out the day. If you're sitting at your desk, no one knows what you're doing, even if you've got shoes on. And where this improves everything is transfer of force from the ground to your hip and from the hip to the ground. And single leg balance is incredibly important. The reason it's called listening foot is that often when people go on one leg, their balance is good for a while, and then when they lose their balance, their whole foot tightens up, and there's no more communication of the foot, like mobility of the foot to the ground. So a foot that's become rigid and clawed up, it's got no movability, it's got no good communication. The movement has to come from the top or from the hip. As soon as my foot is actually listening to the ground, I let the foot relax, and I'm just showing big emotions here. I'm letting it make these adjustments. So it means that my foot is listening to what's happening. I don't have to make these massive adjustments up top. I can actually ground my force, and the body's able to move really well. So if I go into some kind of Tai Chi motion here, when I'm sitting my weight back, so this is this natural spiral motion in the legs. Or from here, I'm transferring weight, I'm moving from the hip. There's a bit of rotation that happens in the knee here as well. And that's normal. I'm not twisting joints. I'm making the twist go through all the tissue.